Harper Audio presents Sacred and Profane, a Peter Decker and Rina Lazarus novel by Faye Kellerman. Performed by Mitch Greenberg. Copyright 1987 by Faye Kellerman. Production copyright 2008 by HarperCollins Publishers. You can keep your white Christmas, thought Decker dreamily, as sunlight blanketed his prone frame. Give me December in L.A. anytime. Currier and Ives' snowscapes looked swell on wrapping paper, but as far as he was concerned, icy Christmas winters were best left to penguins and polar bears. Besides, he wasn't really sure what relevance Christmas, with or without snow, held for him anymore. No tree adorned the picture window of his living room. No cards sat atop the mantel of the fireplace. No multicolored lights hung along the wood-planked siding of his ranch. Hell, here it was the day of Christmas Eve, and he was out camping in the foothills, isolated from civilization, playing big brother to two little boys with yarmulkes. Christmas had never been a big deal to him, but still it felt strange. Some habits were hard to shake. Using his knapsack for a pillow, he shifted onto his back. The air was sweet and tangy, the ground rich with mulch. Throwing an arm over his eyes, he noticed that it had been cooked a deep salmon, and he cursed his coloring, typical for a redhead, all burn, no tan. He should have been more generous with the sunscreen. The arm, already dully throbbing, would blossom into full-fledged pain by tonight. He propped himself onto his elbows and called out to Ginger. The Irish setter trotted over to him, plopped down by his side, and went to sleep. Decker glanced at Sammy, who sat 20 feet away, reading, while dipping his toes into an isolated pool of rainwater. Behind him, a narrow stream carried mountain runoff from last week's rains. Earlier in the day, Decker had offered to take the boys wading, but Sammy had complained that the water was too cold. Though he wasn't weak or timid, he just wasn't keen on the outdoors. The star-studded nighttime sky, the hikes, the cookouts had left him unmoved. Though he insisted he was having the time of his life, Decker knew the kid would have been just as happy holed up anywhere as long as he had Decker's undivided attention. The boy could talk. Often, after his younger brother Jacob had fallen asleep, Sammy would start to pour his heart out, engaging Decker in conversation that sometimes lasted until the early hours of the morning. He was an overly mature kid, not surprising for the firstborn who'd taken on the role of man of the house. Jacob was a different story. The eternal optimist, an enthusiastic youngster who could elicit a smile from a slab of marble, great at amusing himself. Right now he was busy watching an anthill, eyes glued to the nonstop action. Decker enjoyed both of the boys, but knew if he walked out of their lives tomorrow, Jake would recover quickly. Sammy was the vulnerable one. And that worried him because his relationship with their mother was so ambiguous. He and Rina were in love, but not yet lovers. Her religious values forbade intimacy outside of marriage, and marriage right now was impossible. They were in limbo until Decker officially converted. There was an easy way out. He could reveal to Rina that he was adopted, and that his biological parents were Jewish, so there was no legal reason for him to convert. But he didn't consider that a viable option, too dishonest. He was a product of his real parents, the man and woman who'd nurtured him, and they had raised him a Baptist. Besides, Rina deserved a genuinely committed Jew for a husband, not a Jew by accident of birth. Anything less would make her miserable. He knew he'd have to come to orthodoxy on his own. He inhaled deeply, filling his lungs with the pungent, crisp air. He was making progress. His weekly sessions with Rabbi Shulman had shown him to be a quick learner. So far he had no trouble grasping the intellectual and legal aspects of Judaism. But Hebrew remained a roadblock. The boys loved to play teacher with him, drilling him on the Aleph base from their first-grade primers, correcting his pronunciation
Sample complete. Ready to continue?